place for us?
Well, I think it's the Department of Defense. They might get a little irritated if Congressman Neal tries to
votes on
fiddle
their-
with their schedule, I don't know.
He votes on their budget.
Well, that's true, he does. But the fact is that if we know that we are going to be able to pay for it, we know a few months ahead.
We hear voices, thanks.
Okay.
So I take it that you would actually like to know how much it will cost.
Yeah, so we can either keep it open as an option or just take it immediately off the plate if it's gonna be $10,000 or something like that. Just eliminate that. Okay, any questions on agenda item 2 then? Okay, agenda item 3, discuss creation of industrial park covenants with the zoning board. Do we have any representatives from the zoning board here?
They were gonna try to come, but they didn't know about it until the beginning of the week, and
Okay.
it was kind of a busy time.
Well, this, this isn't exactly on topic, but the concern I have is, we're building this access road right now, and right now it's an access road through our industrial park, and I see no movement on a plan for how we're going to develop that industrial park. So my desire would be to have a plan in place the day that road opens, so that we're not scrambling to figure out how we're gonna sell property or how we're gonna develop a park. We'll have a development plan in place, and I know we got some good ideas when we went to New Bedford, and Tom Davis gave us some very interesting suggestions. For example, the idea that we might want to have a daycare center up there to attract business, and we might want to work with this real estate agent, C.B. Richard Ellis, to market the park. And are we making any progress or moving in that direction, Chris, where we're going to create a plan for how we're going to?
Well, I think, we haven't had a chance to talk, Rich, and certainly things don't happen in a vacuum. Certainly things have been done. We are working on putting together an internal meeting. One of the things that I walked away from that New Bedford trip was that the ability to have a lot basically ready to go.
Yep.
They actually have in the planning and zoning world a thing called approval not required, or A&R lots. And because the 45 acres that the town has is specifically on the frontage of the road, we could go ahead and create certain A&R lots that would be very developable.
Yeah.
Where they would come in and we would create a building envelope, do all the necessary setbacks, and allow a developer to come in and basically buy the lots. We do have a meeting set up next week,
In the afternoon.
in which we're going to have Nick Tortoise, Sandy, and Ken Kalinowski, and we're going to go through what our zoning requirements are, and to see if the town would be the applicant for that 45 acres to look at creating and what's the most optimal way to create the A&R lots for us. And what we would do is we'll go through and put together a plan for making those lots as saleable as we could. So part one I think what we want to do is to see what can we do, what do we want to set up, and how do we create that flexibility for those 45 acres. The second piece to that would be to do some kind of RFP for the sale of the land. We need to do that anyway. We need to comply with the procurement law for the disposition of property. And one thing, New Bedford was a private entity, did not have to do any of that. We don't have that. In that RFP, we could include elements that New Bedford had in their covenants. So we could incorporate and have some of these components in that RFP for the types of businesses that we would like to try to locate up there. So that's kind of the short-term game plan that I have. I have every intent on being lined up and ready to go. That road is estimated, well, not estimated, the contract we have in there is that they have to have that road done by, I think it's August 21st, either the 17th or 21st. That road will be done at that point. So we will have to, in that time, between now and then, have this stuff lined up, have the RFPs out, and have them out before. Once they start doing the binder coat of the base pavement, we'll have the RFPs ready to go, so we can market it when we're close to being done. So that's kind of what I have in mind for doing it. In terms of like the other piece, and I suppose this is something that the council needs to consider, is I had proposed having a total plan done of the surrounding acreage. Now, we don't own, all the surrounding acreage, we only own a portion of it. Certainly the 45 are general municipal use and eligible immediately for disposition. There's, numerous acres at the airport that maybe we want to look at and see, what does the airport need, what could the airport convert over to the town for general municipal use that would then also be available for sale. So I think there's a couple pieces in which we control our own destiny. If you're talking about or alluding to a overlay district for the industrial park, then that's really a planning and zoning issue for how we would go about developing property that we don't own, but that the town wishes to have some say in as to how it gets developed by creating an overlay district.
George? Yeah.
Can we become that private entity?
Could the town become the private entity?
Well, how does like New Bedford do it? I guess,
New Bedford actually, in the 1960s, they had several members of Rotary, Kiwanis, and different clubs got together and formed a private company. And then they started to acquire property and they built up the industrial park.
well, how does the
It's a
state
private
do it,
venture.
like with the MBTA and those kind of things? They're private entities within the state that they set their own fees and those kind of things. Couldn't we, as a redevelopment authority, be that private entity so they wouldn't have to, where we wouldn't have to follow all the procurement laws versus a private entity within the town?
And that's something you're talking about quasi-private. We'd have to really look and see, how long that would take and what that would take to form.
Because not only for the industrial park, but maybe for anything future, the redevelopment authority as far as doing downtown type stuff.
Well, we have a downtown redevelopment authority
Right,
now.
but I mean, I think they did something with like the redevelopment, didn't they, with the water supplier, they wanted to be able to turn it over to them?
Yes, it could be turned over, definitely could be turned over, but it still has to be then managed. And if it was turned over, the redevelopment authority, people meet at night, they might be able to do it. I'm sure they could do it, but would they be able to have the time to do it? The other thing is, sometimes when it's publicly owned, there are benefits to that. Chris was mentioning RFP. Well, when you create an RFP, you create certain conditions that you want, that are appropriate for you or the town.
Okay.
So maybe, on studying that, you might think that the RFP method was better.
Right, makes sense.
It could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the government, in this case, the 45 acres, I don't think there's any issue with selling those off.
Right, I guess I look at the
think
fact
that's
like they did in Putnam with their industrial park as far as taking and doing a incubator type thing, built the building, had the lot, then they sell it, they lease it for 5 years or whatever it was, and then they in turn, with the hope of that they'll purchase that. I don't know if it's a private setup in Putnam, the way they do things in their
I
industrial
think
park.
she said it was a government one.
Yeah.
I think it's what she said. I mean, one concept, and let's just, if we have the 45 acres and we have, let's say, 5 parcels, the town we could consciously decide, well, let's sell 3 parcels, take the proceeds from that, and then build a spec building.
Okay.
So we're not precluding that at this point. I just think we need to get to the point where we need to figure out what's the most marketable, and then what do we want to do. But I think, and even the example down in New Bedford was they took that money from the first couple sales and then put it back into the park. And I think we would want to make sure that we maintain good fiscal discipline if we're going to do that, and do that on our own.
I guess part of my concern, the reason for that too, is that I hate to see our town council get involved in a particular sale of a parcel